Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski, and next up is my friend Ray Hanania.
And I am Ray Hanania here at Two Guys on Politics with former Congressman Bill Lipinski. We're here every week. And today we got two great topics that kind of are intertwined a little bit. The one is this growing migrant crisis and how it's being given a priority over the safety of police. We saw that incident in New York City where two officers were beaten and attacked by migrants, and the migrants were just let off the no charges or nothing. And then the other issue is, in a way, it's kind of tied, but we'll talk about it. The U.S. Senate had a hearing on cyberbullying on social media, and they brought in the five largest social media companies: Facebook, or Meta, TikTok, Discord, Twitter, or X as it's called, and Snapchat. And they were blaming the social media for cyberbullying and the deaths of young people around the country. And they even brought in a bunch of families who lost children to cyberbullying or social media related incidents. Let's talk about the Senate hearing. What did you think of the hearing that was held this week?
Well, I thought it was a grandstand play by the Senate. The deaths are, very, very unfortunate, more than unfortunate. They're tragic.
Right.
But the Senate and the parents all seem to be blaming the social media companies. And I have to disagree with that. I'm sorry. They might be held accountable to a certain degree, but the major responsibility is the parents. The parents should see to it that if they are concerned about their children at all, or even if they're not, they should certainly monitor what their children are watching. And if necessary, put a hold on the computers that are available to their children. Only the ones that are 18 and up will have unlimited access to these computers. The rest of them will not be able to get anything on the computer except that which is acceptable to everyone. So it's a great tragedy, but here's another situation where we have parent responsibility being abdicated in favor of having a corporation, a company, or a government, police things to protect their children. Well, it's not their job. It's the job of the parents to protect these children.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill, 100%. I think that this was a political grandstanding by the U.S. Senate. Senator Dick Durbin, who's a decent guy most of the time. I don't always agree with everything he does. It's Senator Peter Welch from Vermont. This was Democrats and Republicans. I think they jumped on this cyberbullying and social media because they want to try to convey that despite all the polarization that they've wreaked on our country by fighting with each other and all these other important issues, they wanted to try and find something where they could look like the good guys and make somebody else look like the bad guys. And you're right, they're blaming the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, TikTok, and they were pandering to the parents. And I agree with you. This is a parental issue. This isn't the social media. These are parents that should be putting their foot down, and young people shouldn't be on social media unless the parent is with them. How much does a cell phone cost or a computer? They're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on these kids and letting them go out and do whatever they want. It's really irresponsible, and parents should be held responsible. And you're absolutely right. It is a tragedy that these young people have been cyberbullied and killed, but I don't believe it is Facebook or Twitter or even TikTok that's responsible for what happened. Parents not doing their job, and as hard as it is to say, they are responsible for what happened to their kids. But as you point out, we're getting away from parental responsibility, right?
That's for sure.
Well,
these transgender operations that can be performed without the parents knowing about it, I think that is horrendous. I think that should be totally outlawed. Half these kids don't know if they're boys or girls until they're much older anyway. So you shouldn't be monkeying around with them anyway physically until they're at least 21 years of age and can make a decision totally an informed decision, totally on their own.
And I think the point that you're making is so important. We're not really talking about is transgender good or bad, is being gay rights good or bad, is being on a computer good or bad. What's good or bad is parents that are involved is good. Parents that are not involved and passing along responsibility to schools, to local governments, to Senate hearings, that's bad. And it looks like this transgender issue, they're going into schools and they're taking away parental rights. And a lot of parents are just going along with it. They don't want to be responsible for it. Their kids are out at 2 a.m. on a Chicago street, walking down the street, waving a knife while police are chasing them down. Remember that Laquan McDonald? Now,
Absolutely.
I certainly don't believe that he should have been shot 16 times, but why was he out late at night? Where were his parents? This is a teenager. The parents should, if you're going to blame the police, shouldn't we blame the parents? We should be charging the parents too. And it sounds harsh, but you know what? If we made parents responsible, some of these problems would not be happening. We wouldn't be losing kids.
Absolutely. Now, when you went to school, Ray, either elementary school or high school, was there bullying that went on?
Well, you know, I went to school in the Middle East, so we didn't really have, no, I'm just joking.
You didn't go to school.
Yes, listen, there was bullying in school. They didn't blame the school. What they did was they called the parents in, and the parents would step in, and all the parents would be brought in, and things would be done. They didn't wait till a bully beat me up and killed me. As soon as something happened, parents were brought in, and it was stopped because my parents knew exactly what we were doing. I remember my mom was a lunch monitor at lunchtime when we were in grade school. She knew exactly what we were doing in class because she got involved with the school. Now, some people say, oh, yeah, your mother must have been rich. She didn't have to work. No, my mother worked at the Solo Cup company, but she was given time off to go to the school to do her part to monitor the kids. And a lot of parents were involved back then. Today, it's like we just throw our kids to the system and say, the system better educate my kids so he can make a lot of money. And only let me know when the kid graduates and starts collecting a paycheck. They don't care, some of them, about these kids.
Did you, do you know of anyone in your elementary school or high school that wound up committing suicide because of bullying?
No, I'm sure it happened, but I never heard of anything like that. Were there problems? Yes, there were. Were there problem kids? Yes, there were. But the parents were helped when a kid would beat up people, the parents were brought in. And it was made clear to the parents that you need to take care of your child or you're out of the school. You leave and take the kid with you. They would expel the kids. And that would cause a great inconvenience to the parents. So parents had a reason to crack down on kids that were unruly or not doing the right thing. Certainly, if my dad ever found out that I was out after 9 o'clock, if I wasn't home when the lights went on the street, he would have beat the crap out of me and to teach me a lesson, not to hurt me, but to teach me, don't be out on the street after the lights go out. Don't be out on the street, sneak out of the house in the middle of the night. And certainly don't be out on the street with a gun or a knife and act like you're some type of mobster. That's horrible that it's done today.
Now, you went to public school and you went to Catholic school. Did you find any difference between the school, intervening, or were they both the same?
No. Well, I went to school I started in the 50s. I graduated in the 60s from grammar school. I think it was 1967, that June. And then I went to high school, Bowen High School for 2 years. Then we went to Bogan. There were some racial issues there. We ended up going to Catholic school. And then we went to Revis High School where I graduated. Every one of those schools brought our parents in and engaged them with our lives in school. I couldn't do anything without, if I did something wrong, my parents would get called in immediately. One time I complained that I got to school late at lunch. We were watching Bozo Circus. My sister and I, we were in 4th grade. And we lied and we said, oh, we're late because we didn't have anything to eat. And they said, oh, come with us. They took us to the lunchroom and we're eating the food that they set aside for the teachers. And next thing I know, I look at the door and there's my mom, angry as heck, standing at the door. They grabbed her out of the Solo Cup factory. She came there. They called her immediately. She punished us. We were punished for a month for lying. I had to apologize to the class. I had to apologize to the teachers. My mother was held responsible, and she took it out on us by punishing us, denying us television, playtime. You know, there were things that you could do, but my parents and family were held responsible for me. And I learned a quick lesson: don't ever do that again. It was the worst experience I had, and I never got in trouble again after that.
That's wonderful. But you see, the key word there is the responsibility. Back
Yes.
in my time, the parents knew that they had the responsibility for their children. They accepted responsibility. Now, the schools cooperated with them, or they cooperated with the schools, but it wasn't expected that the schools or government was going to take care of children, to try to straighten children out. It was up to the parents, and the parents did their job. I don't think that's the case nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm not saying that, you know, that kids should have been slapped or beat with a stick or a ruler, you know, or demeaned in front of the class. I'm saying that when you did something wrong, the parents were immediately engaged, and they knew what their kids were doing. My mother and father knew what I was doing when I grew up in school until I got into high school, and it was even when I was in high school they knew what I was doing. And I think that instilled a respect that for society and the system. I went out and got a job when I was 14 years old, illegally, of course, but
You broke the law.
I did break the law to
Oh,
raise
okay.
money, but I was at work, you know, after school. I worked 6 hours, 3 nights a week. I think I made 95 cents an hour working at a Burger King at what was it, 87th and Luella Avenue, right across from CVS High School. And but the point is, I'm saying, yeah, I kind of broke the law with getting the job, but my parents knew about it. My parents met with the owner of the Burger King, got permission for me to work with them, and I learned how important it was to be responsible, to do something every day, to get up in the morning, go to school, finish school, go to work. I would make some money. I'd give some money to my parents, but I had some money so I could buy all the things that kids wanted to buy, which at the time were not drugs and guns or knives. They were slot cars.
Oh,
And, you know, you
slot
could
cars?
race
Okay.
slot cars at the local, five and dime Hilltop store near
Uh,
Warren Elementary School.
Unfortunately, that was after my time, slot cars. We didn't have anything quite that exotic. But no, things have changed. We realize things have changed. But what should not have changed is parent responsibility. It's the
Yeah,
parents' job to bring up their children. If they're going to have children, they should have enough responsibility of their own to bring them up, to treat them correctly, but to teach them what is right and what is wrong. We'd have a lot more crime today, a lot less crime today if parents would do that, whether they
I
were
agree.
Black, Hispanic, or even Arab.
Right.
It-
I agree. I totally agree.
okay,
Well, and in fact, just, you know, I wrote a couple weeks ago a column. A good example was that Arab kid who was with a friend in a car that got pulled over by Oakland police. And they asked the kids to get out of the car one at a time. Both were Arab. The first Arab kid got out of the car. He was treated with respect. He was asked questions. He was searched. Nothing happened to him. He stood by on the side, and the police officer said, once we get through this, we'll let you go. We just want to make sure everything was okay. Then the second kid, they said, hey, leave that bag next to you, which looked like a gun bag. It's not just any old Jewel Osco bag. It was a special bag that holds weapons. They said, leave that bag on the back seat. They realized there was a problem. The kid realized that there was a problem. And instead of getting out, he got out and grabbed the bag and ran. And they chased the kid down. They finally caught him with the gun, but he held the gun under his stomach. He wouldn't let the police get it. The police believed it was a gun. So to get him to let go, they start punching his arms, his shoulders, and the side of his head. finally he relented. And instead of teaching that kid a lesson, the police were attacked. The protesters, Arab Americans, claiming that the police were bullies, that they're violent. This is another Laquan McDonald. This is, Rodney King or all these other things. And the focus was on the police, and the police officers got punished. And what do you think happened? A year and a half later, almost 2 years, that kid went right out again, and last week was arrested with him and two of his friends who happen to be Arab, and they beat up a man at Lifetime Fitness and stole his cell phone. Police finally caught these kids and charged them. And I thought, if the parents, instead of blaming the police, had taken responsibility for their son the first time, he may never have gone out and gotten in trouble again. But
I
parents,
believe you have. Yes, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, parents are empowering their kids to do wrong when they deflect from them and blame the police or blame society or say it's about racism. The young teenagers shouldn't be on the street, and they certainly shouldn't have a gun. If your dad found you when you were a kid and you had a gun in a bag,
I hate to think of what would happen.
but it would have been a lesson that you would have learned,
certainly
and I don't think you would have had a gun again.
No, I would not have had a gun again. By the way, I haven't had a gun since I was in the military, which was a few days ago.
And me too. I haven't had a gun. I've done some kid stuff, but your parents are on you. I think we both were raised properly because our parents were on top of this. And that's unfortunately not happened. Now, the other side of it was the other issue is migrants. And the fact that, again, society wants everyone else to take care of someone else's problem. These migrants are crossing the border like crazy. They're not going through the system. Nobody gets to vet them. We give them food. We give them money, cards to buy things. We find a place for them to stay. And I'm thinking, wow, these migrants are basically homeless, so we have to take care of them. What about these migrants are non-citizens too? What about the American citizens? 580,000 of them that are homeless, and we don't do enough for them. And a third, maybe 25% of them are veterans who serve this country, American citizens. We don't do enough for them.
Yeah, it's really a very bad situation, as I've said over the course of the last couple of years. I can only blame Joe Biden for this. His policy of the border, and it's been an open border underneath Joe Biden. They have just poured in. They're illegal aliens. They have no right to be in this country whatsoever. We are a big, strong, economically powerful nation, militarily powerful, but we don't have any responsibility to take in people from around the world into our country, particularly when they are coming here illegally. And Lord only knows what kind of criminals are coming, what kind of drug addicts are coming, what kind of diseases they might be bringing in. I don't know.
We don't vet them. We don't check them, right? We don't vet them. They just come right in. So we have no idea. You're absolutely, and I know you're not calling them because I remember when Trump raised this issue 6 years ago, they said, "Oh, you're calling Mexicans terrorists." No, we're not calling anybody terrorists. We're saying when somebody comes into this country, they should go through a legal process. Who are you? What's your background? What contribution are you going to make to America? And do you really care about America? Or is this some economic benefit that your country won't give to you that you want to get from us? And we're not doing that anymore. And sadly, just like with cyberbullying, the politicians have refocused on the wrong issue. They've turned it into a political issue that migrants, the poor guys, the poor women, the poor children, and I feel sorry for them. Let's take care of them. Okay, let's take care of them, but don't by not letting them into the country. Make them do it the right way. Make them come here the right way. Don't allow them just to walk across the border.
Well, I agree with that totally. And as I say, I blame Joe Biden for that, and I believe that it could cost him the election. Although now former President Trump, when the Senate, Democrats and Republicans seem like they have come to some kind of agreement on
Right.
closing the border and shutting down to a great extent this invasion by illegal immigrants into our country. Trump has come out and said, don't pass this. He's told the House not to pass it because he wants to keep it as a political issue.
Yeah.
Now, how can you complain for years and years that Biden hasn't done anything? Now he finally does do something, and you're going to be opposed to it because you don't want to lose that as a political issue. Well, you could still have that as a political issue. The fact that it took him this long to get around to doing anything about the border because an election is coming up. I mean, the hypocrisy that exists in politics today is just, it is really very, very disturbing, to say the least, to me.
Yeah, there is a pattern of some elected officials at the national level wanting controversies, wanting crisis, because it empowers them. I remember a good friend of ours, Luis Gutierrez, former cab driver who became a Chicago alderman. I knew him very well. He then became a congressman. He served 22 years. His biggest issue was to address the immigration problem. But without the immigration problem, he had no issues. That was his only issue. And if they ever addressed the immigration problem, what was he going to talk about? Being an American? He's Puerto Rican, and technically he was automatically an American. But without that immigration problem, there's no political argument or basis to whip up the public and line up your followers behind you blindly so they don't see the real issues. They see these manufactured crises that are created for political reasons. That migrant issue should be dealt with the right way, but I don't know if anybody's courageous enough to do it. And you're right. I think Trump is doing the exact same thing. Biden isn't cracking down on migrants because he thinks, oh, we should crack down on migrants. He's cracking down on migrants because he realizes he's on a very thin ice right now in his reelection. He needs to respond to the issues that he hasn't been responding to during the last 3 years. And Trump, you're right. I want an issue that I can beat the drum on, and he doesn't want them to solve it so he can say that he did it. It's terrible.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're not concerned about the country. They're only concerned about their own political future, which is, well, as I say, it really upsets me because at one time I think politics was a noble profession, being a public official. Nowadays, well, that's something for another day. I don't want to go down that road because we're not really talking about that. How about the situation, Ray, that took place in New York? What do you think of that?
Oh, that's the migrants that started fighting with two of the police officers. The police officers were trying to restrain these two migrants, and they were Venezuelan migrants. And suddenly 5 or 6 other migrants started kicking and beating up on the police officers, and they arrested some of them. They ended up just releasing them. And I'm sure everybody saw it. The one migrant was walking with his hands up in the air with both middle fingers out, like he was telling us to go shove it, that he has more influence in this country than the law-abiding Americans that those police represent. That's the worst part about all this. That arrogance should have been shut down. Those migrants that were engaged, they should have been all arrested. They should be handcuffed. They should be thrown out of this country, and they should be punished. They should be banned from coming in here. And if they come in again, they should be put in jail. Now, does that make me insensitive because some migrant beat up police and I don't want him to have a comfy life on the taxpayer dime? No, I don't think so. We don't do enough. We're afraid to do the right thing.
Yeah, that is just inconceivable to me that something like that could happen in this country, where illegal aliens beat up police officers in this country, American citizens, and they are freed, and somehow the police are to blame for the situation. It's just a further erosion in the sanity in this country when something like that happens. Has anything happened to those illegal immigrants whatsoever that you know of? Nothing.
No, not that I know of. And this is a trend, not just in New York City, but in major cities like even in Cook County, in Chicago, and Cook County, where if you commit a crime, the charges recommend we need to change our system. we need a tougher Cook County State's Attorney. Listen, the last tough Cook County State's Attorney that I remember was Bernie Carey. He was an
Okay.
outsider. He wasn't afraid to take on the establishment in Cook County, which is predominantly Democratic at the time. But that counterbalance, I think, allowed him to be tough and to force the machine and the Democrats to be tough, and the police were respected. All we've seen since then is the politicization, I think, of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, where today police recommend charges and the state's attorney denies those charges, refusing to prosecute them. We should give the ability to charge people back to police, let them file the charges, and the state's attorney should do their best to represent the police and prosecute those criminals. Instead, police only have a recommendation now, and the state's attorney can say, well, let's let them out. And what do we see happening, Bill? Someone gets arrested, they're released, and then 6 or 7 weeks later, they go out and kill somebody. And that's when we find out they had these long records of crime and these benefits of being released. This is a national crisis that we see here in Cook County, we see with migrants, we see all over the country, and I don't think anybody's doing anything about it.
Well, being soft on crime, you can see what happened to San Francisco. San Francisco has gone from one of the most prosperous cities in the country, one of the cities that so many people had liked to visit, the vacation around there, San Francisco, Napa Valley, that entire area. I understand that the people coming there for a vacation is down 50% in the last couple of years. That every street corner seems to have a problem, and the police have done nothing whatsoever about it because the state's attorneys have done nothing about it whatsoever. And I'm happy to see that we're going to get a new state's attorney here in Cook County, because I think the existing one has contributed mightily to this pro-crime wave that we are unfortunately seeing in this country. So I hope we vote for the toughest state's attorney we can find that's running for public office this next time around, because we definitely need it. We don't want Chicago to turn into a San Francisco.
Yeah, and we're pretty close at doing that. All right, Bill, I think we kind of hit all the topics we wanted to. Thank you. And just to remind our listeners, you could read Bill Lipinski's columns on suburbanchicagoland.com. They appear in the Des Plaines Valley News, the Southwest News Herald, and the Regional News newspaper. And I write my columns there also. So thank you.
Until next time, this is Bill Lipinski, a fellow American.
And I'm Ray Hanania, and we will talk to you again next week on Thursday with our next podcast. And Bill, we managed to get through this without mentioning Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s candidacy, although that is a big magnet for listeners. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll talk to you again. Bye-bye, everybody.